Welcome back to Adventurous Way. I'm Diana.
And I'm Matt, and we're here today in western New Mexico as we continue our journey, starting in LA and heading up Route 66 towards Oklahoma.
Today we'll see El Morro National Monument, which is one of the first graffiti in the United States. We'll see 2,000 inscriptions left as early as 1605, and before that also some petroglyphs.
And El Morro National Monument is our 25th stop on our journey to visit all 419 national park units across the US.
There are two trails here. One is Inscription Trail and the second one is Headland Trail. We'll do both of them. That will be a total of about 2 miles. And from the visitor center we picked up this guide that talks more about the markings on the trail. So this landscape here is very different than what we've seen in the southwest in the deserts. So I've spent some time learning about the wildflowers and the cacti, and now I want to learn about the trees. So far I have learned that this here is some sort of juniper, but I don't know which kind of juniper it is. And this is some sort of pine, but I don't know which one. So hopefully over time, as we spend more time in these kind of forest landscapes, I will be able to distinguish them better.
El Morro is Spanish for the headland or the bluff that you can see behind me here. But what really attracted people to this area was this oasis. There is a small pool here that forms from rainfall during the summer months, during the monsoon period, and also from melting snow. And this is one of the only reliable water sources for 40 miles in this area. So it was a really strategic place. El Morro has been in use for almost 1,000 years, starting with the ancestral pueblos who used to use this place. After they left, the Spanish came along in the 16th century, and more recently it was then resurveyed by the American Army as they were looking for new ways to head west. All of these travellers have left their mark on this area, and although originally this used to be a sand-banked pool that you could actually walk all the way around, over the years it's changed, there's been a rockfall, and in fact we're now standing on a concrete dam that blocks this water in. The inscriptions are evident everywhere here. There's almost 200 inscriptions on the wall from the ancestral Pueblans, and the Spanish who came here afterwards left almost 2,000 inscriptions on the wall.
So the way I'm learning about the plants is actually from walking the trails and national park units, and most of them have these small plaques in front of the different trees that says the name of it and describes it. This one, for example, is a ponderosa pine. And I think I'm starting to learn that the ponderosa pine has like really long needles compared to the other pines.
Both women and men passed by El Morro, but very few women left their inscriptions. Miss A.F. Bailey was one of the few exceptions. America Frances Bailey and her sister Amelia were part of a wagon party headed from Missouri to California in 1858. The group followed the route newly surveyed by the US Army and at the time known as Beale's Wagon Road, which passed by El Morro. If America Bailey had known what she would encounter later in the journey, she may not have continued. Just east of the Colorado River, 800 Mojave Indians attacked the 60 Anglo travelers. The Mojave killed 9 and injured 17, while suffering 87 casualties themselves. The pioneering caravan retreated to New Mexico to wait out the winter in Albuquerque or Santa Fe. The Bailey sisters eventually made it to Fresno County, California. Look at this one here. I think it says E. Penn Long, Baltimore. That is crazy detailed inscription on this rock.
This guidebook says that the P. Gilmer Breckenridge, he was responsible for 25 camels.
Because of the sheer number of inscriptions here, petroglyphs and some of the signatures and things, this is known as Inscription Rock. A lot of the inscriptions on the walls here are actually written in Spanish, such as this one here, and many of the ones in Spanish use the phrase paso por aquí, or passed through here, such as this one done by Ramon Garcia, which says, on the 25th of the month of June on this year of 1709, Ramon Garcia Gerardo passed through here on the way to Zuni. One of the things that's really fascinating me as we walk around these places is seeing how the National Park Service's approach to conservation has changed over the years. One of the inscriptions you can see behind me here was actually darkened with a graphite No. 2 pencil by the National Park Service in the early days in an attempt to preserve this inscription. That would not be done nowadays, and that would be left much more organically, but it's really fascinating to see how that approach has changed over the years. The inscription in front of us here about Andres Romero is actually the latest inscription from the Spanish colonial times, and this was done in 1774. Here we're looking at some of the petroglyphs. These were done by the ancestral Puebloan people and commonly include things like bighorn sheep and bears.
Looks like that guy's hunting something.
R.H. Orton held the rank of captain when the first cavalry was mustered out from March to October of 1866. He may have made his inscription as he returned to California. On the wall behind me is another great example of how the National Park Service's approach to conservation has changed over the years. You can see here that some of the rock appears to have been sort of sanded down or worn down, and that was actually a conservation effort in the 1920s when the National Park supervisor at the time, the superintendent, he actually decided to erase any inscriptions, any graffiti that was added to the wall after 1906. Even today it's a dilemma. What should you keep and preserve and what should be removed? The inscription here by Lieutenant J.H. Simpson was the first inscription left by English-speaking people in 1849.
So these stairs don't look like much, but we are at 7,500 feet elevation, and you feel it, or we feel it, because we have mostly grown up and lived at sea elevation, so 7,500 feet, that's a lot. So we finished with the Inscription Trail, and now we're walking the Headland Trail, which will go all the way up to the bluffs, and we'll walk on top of them. We're now at the top of the bluff, and this is a very interesting trail. I've never hiked on a trail like this. It basically has markings carved out in the rock to say where the trail is. See the dwellings over there.
We're now on top of the bluff, and we're at maybe the highlight of El Moro. This is called At Sinner, which translates as where the pictures are on the rock. And this is an ancestral Puebloan facility, a town if you like. It was occupied during 1275 and 1400. And in the 1950s and 60s, an excavation was done on just 18 rooms here. But there's actually thought to be over 300 rooms here that would have housed a town of maybe up to 800 people. So this was really quite a sizable settlement. So we've just finished the trip around the Headland Trail here at Moro National Monument. In total, it was 2.2 miles that we recorded, and we just really enjoyed that. It was a good fun hike. It is a pretty steep climb up. The elevation gain up there was about 400 feet, so a fairly steep climb up the switchbacks and then back down some steps on this side. Bit of scrambling on the top and following that narrow trail. Really good fun though to see. From here, we're going to head inside the visitor centre. There is a short movie about El Moro that we want to watch. But otherwise, I really hope you've enjoyed our journey here. We've really enjoyed being here, and we'll see you next time. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and don't miss the next episode. I'm being plagued by flies.
This inscription behind me is the oldest Spanish. This inscription behind me is the oldest inscription. Those birds are super loud.